throughout this whole review I will try to avoid not saying hammer time. Thor. Now, Thor and Captain America were the two films that were going to be quite risky because now that they were going to make the Avengers film, but these two films are going to be tricky because these are kind of like the hardest characters to kind of transition. And if these films didn't do it as well, then the whole Avengers thing that they were trying to build out would just be a complete waste of time. So was it a complete waste of time, or was this film any good? Let's find out. Our story begins in Asgard, where Thor is about to be crowned the sort of king of Asgard when all of a sudden these sort of frost giants sort of kind of like manage to sneak their way into the sort of the treasure room, trying to steal something that belongs to them. And now Thor, in his kind of anger, he goes over to the sort of these frost giants' sort of home, causes a bit of a stir. Odin comes along, kind of like kind of does his thing, and then is so angry with Thor that he banishes him to Earth, where he meets Jane Foster, and he has to kind of try to find his hammer, but also kind of learn like how to be more respectful of like other things. Before with Loki, Thor's sort of brother, becomes like the new sort of king because Odin's in the Odin sleep, but has a little devilish plan. Now, what's good about this film? Actually, let's start off with the main protagonist, Thor, Chris Hemsworth. Now, this guy kind of like came out of nowhere. He sort of beat the competition to sort of play this character, and I remember this guy from the back in the days of Home and Away. Yes, I used to watch the show back then. And I totally remember this guy's face when I saw him, and he kills it as Thor. In fact, he's actually the way I think Thor should have looked like, and he kind of, I mean, he is sort of arrogant when he's in, but he's arrogant, but then he also becomes kind of like more respectful and learns, and you kind of see it how he has so much pride. Now, but the villain that plays Loki, Tom Hiddleston, I think that's how you pronounce it, he is really good as Loki. Like, he's very deceivious and very well acted, this guy, and the fact that he's going to be the main villain in the Avengers, I think he's going to absolutely kill it. Some of the scenes in this film though was just like spectacular. It's like, it was really good, and you kind of feel it that this, this kind of like existed, like everything kind of about it. Natalie Portman is in it, but she kind of plays it kind of the sort of safe role, so that you don't expect anything great from her. She just really plays it safe. But Agent Coulson, he's back in this film, and he's got more lines. He's literally badass, this guy. But what's bad about this film? Well, to be honest, as I said, like with Asgard, it looks good and all that, but it looks a wee bit cheap, or maybe because they were like, seeing the sort of when Thor goes down to sort of Earth, they're in this kind of like sort of abandoned kind of place in Mexico. Not really a lot of people. Like, I think there's a population over like 200 or something. So obviously the production was spent so little on that, so they can spend more on special effects, and it kind of shows throughout the whole film. I mean, even when S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of gather around the sort of hammer, you can tell that they're using kind of like cheap materials, and sort of maybe some of the fights aren't really as spectacular as you want. Also, some of like the characters in the film are kind of like just not really used. I mean, Marvel teams seem to do this quite a bit, whereas they'll have all these characters in the film, but they just don't seem to use them as much, and they just feel so underused, and I feel that's kind of bad about it. But what's ugly about the film is it's rated as a 12, but it's more aimed at kids, and the reason it's more aimed for kids is because cha-ching, money, franchise, merchandise. That is what this film kind of souls out to be. And if it was given a PG rating, I would have complained as much, but because it's a 12, I'm expecting maybe a wee bit more, you know, sort of, a wee bit more sort of fighting into it, a bit more sort of like rough fighting. It just, because they're kind of appealing it to more kids, and that really kind of annoyed me a little bit. But overall, this film gets the rating of great. This is one of my favourite Avengers prelude films. Like, this is a film I'd probably watch over and over again, and for the score I give it an 8 out of 10. So I only have one more film to review, and you know what film that is. Not going to give you any hints here though, so you just have to check out next time.